Get out.
Get out.
Get out.
Get out.
No.
Get out.
It's time. Spoiler review 4. Get out. Get out. We gotta get out. What's going on out there, YouTube? This is SEL0320 representing JVS. So I'm back here again for another spoiler-filled review. To my great excitement, I've been waiting to talk about this movie. I got done with looking at the movie, and literally all I could think about all night long was this movie. I'm talking about Get Out, and hope you enjoyed that little bit of skit. I kind of give like a small preview for people, so they kind of didn't know what the heck that was, but now you know that's what it's about. But the movie itself was done very well crafted and directed. You can check out all the dynamics of what I thought about the cinematography, from a lot of the things as far as the production, the amazing performances by the cast all around the board, and specifically Jordan Peele for writing and directing this and having a comprehension of understanding what it means to entertain, to pull in, and to make people think. But the thing about this film that I will say, Get Out, is that I did not realize that the central theme of brainwashing and manipulation was actually going to happen to me as an audience member. And this is where I'm going to go into this. So one of the things that happens in this film, oh yeah, by the way, this is all spoiler filled. So if you have not seen the movie, go and check out Get Out as soon as possible. It is not what you think. A lot of people have gone in and like, okay, this is going to promote, you know, a race war, this is going to promote a civil war. And it's not, because once you actually understand what the film is really about and the underlying theme behind it, it's much more than that. Yes, the movie does show different pinpoint moments for an African-American man, what it looks like for him on a general basis. Like there was a scene, like I kind of described in a non-spoiler review, where the main character Chris is with his girlfriend Rose, and they're, you know, driving on the road, and a deer hits them, and he kind of freaks out, and they stop, and then this cop goes behind them, and they, you know, he kind of racially profiles him. He asks for his driver's license when, like, Chris is in the house with Rose's family. One of the things that her dad does is like, well, no, she'd even said it was weird. Like, they were like, well, I would have voted for Obama for a third term if it was even possible. Well, it was like this cringeworthy kind of like trying to connect kind of thing. And even when they went to the party, it was like everybody around him were coming from a different background than Chris. And he's kind of like a fish out of water. And that feeling of kind of being like out of place, it's something that I've gone through most of my life. You know, I played baseball, I played golf, I played a lot of different things and did a lot of different things with people of different races. And I've been in situations where I was the only black person within a congregation that was just all Caucasian. You know, and I was fine with that. You know, but I do know different situations where people do racially profile me. Like if I'm wearing the wrong thing, or if I'm talking a certain kind of way around the wrong person, then I can get profiled. It's very common and it's a common thing, but what do you do to counteract that? What Peele wanted to do was identify but not make that the central theme. Be honest with you, I did not realize that the film wasn't gonna, I thought it was gonna touch on racism, but it's really not. What it is, and I actually wrote notes on this, is the need for identity. The catalyst is a theme of submission and brainwashing and manipulation, and like even when they were like having the mom, like she basically had this way of being able to use hypnosis to rid somebody of an addiction, specifically for Chris for his addiction with cigarettes. Did the same thing supposedly with the dad, but the whole thing was that I gotta take a step back. The whole thing that happened in the film is that you come to find out that the big revelation, the big twist, is that the servants that were there, they initially were normal people that had been abducted, that had gone through this kind of situation that Chris is going through, where they were bidded upon and they were used as surrogates for the rest of their lives. Like a part of their brain was really manipulated and somebody else's brain was put in. But the whole part of it is the person, like, it was like 3 different steps. The guy from Office Space, he really described it very well when Chris was kind of strapped down, is that first you got to get acclimated. First you have to be, in this kind of submissive kind of state. And then after that point, you're kind of okay for us primed to now take your identity. Then I can implant myself into you. But there's still going to always be a part of you there. Now, there is an underlying theme there that I wanted to kind of bring up. And is that it wasn't that the people at the party were looking at Chris like, man, get this, such and such black man out of here. Get this guy out of here. They wanted to be him. They counted him as this more dominant race. Like he was faster, that he had a better eye than the guy that wanted him was blind. And he was like, listening to somebody describe what his ability as a photographer was, he wanted what he had. And it was interesting because everybody there at the party wasn't that they were racist. It was the fact that they wanted, what Chris had. And it was, and like even Chris had asked the question like, why black people? And the guy couldn't even really describe it to him. It was just looking at it from whether it was like looking at a person being too cool or being more fit or being more adept. One of the things that's really interesting, and this is more going into more of a cultural standpoint, is that from an age, like people that age, like supposedly people's perspective looked at African Americans, they aged a lot better. And it was interesting because the person that was the last person in the beginning of the movie that kind of got abducted, you kind of find out, when Chris did the Flash, that rid himself out of that state just long enough to try to warn Chris to get out. Initially, when I was looking at it, I was like, no, he's got to be, gonna attack Chris. And even with the 2 servants, I was like, okay, no, they're trying to slowly warn Chris because they're just brainwashed. I did not realize that those were the grandparents. I did not realize the guy that was in the beginning of the movie, that was the woman's husband that had supposedly died, but really it was just a replacement. He came and put his body in his mind. He took his body and put his mind into, this man. And it was only Chris that kind of got him out of that state. But throughout, most of the time, Chris was also dealing with some trauma. And I think that they actually targeted people that dealt with different things, levels of trauma, because it was too identifiable. Like the mom, she knew, the things that kind of Chris had gone through. And it's weird because they used Rose, which is the daughter, which it was funny because I was like, man, she's got his back in the beginning. She had his back here. It wasn't until I realized that Rose had this innate need for him not to leave. It was like at the moment she was going to leave, I was like, warning sign, flag in the play, something's wrong. And then when he finally did see the pictures of all different people, like she described the brother described the situation where Rose had this person that was like 6'3", tried to kiss her first kiss, and she bit the dude's tongue off. Like, who does that? Unless you did that for a reason, And it's weird because people would take this movie out of context and believing that this is like, they're promoting hate. They wanted to just, put people and torture them. But no, it's really, they wanted to become them. It was more of a need to replacement of identity. And a lot of times from a cultural standpoint, I think that what Peele is trying to do is he's saying that a lot of people, like, they might come off as racially biased here, racially biased there, but there's this need, to connect, that this is some other factor that this race has that I don't have, kind of thing. And it was definitely evident throughout most of the film that in the beginning I was like, no, they're going to torture him or they want to enslave him. And yes, they were enslaving the people's body, but they wanted not just to have control over them, they wanted to be them. And that was a whole different dynamic that I didn't see coming. And it's interesting because there's a lot of different things that people can look at as like, all right, Peele is trying to, promote his own propaganda of like, believing white people all inherently want to be black people. And that's not the case, I don't think, in this film. I think it's that these specific people, they weren't happy with themselves and they felt the need to have control over this specific race of people based on stuff that were generational. Like, it was like from a scientific standpoint, from a analytical standpoint, and then also from what they specifically believed that they needed to do to re-preserve themselves. It was like they were trying to relive vicariously through the person. Now, the symbolicism behind that is a lot of people, and I don't want to go into this too much, but a lot of people think that when, you know, African Americans, like, when they go and they date outside their race, you know, like, it's easy that they might go and become bougie, or they might become, you know, something totally different than what they normally were. Just because, you know, they're dating somebody else. One of the things that I think that was key about this film is that what Chris never did is, even though he had opportunity to kill that specific person at the very end, he chose not to. It was like all the things that he had done with that person, he chose not to do the ultimate act that, you know, you would expect him to do. Like, people were in the film, like, cheering on, like, do it, don't even worry about the ramifications. And he chose not to do that, which I thought that was really key from a storyboard standpoint, in that, yes, he was manipulated, yes, he was tortured, yes, he was brainwashed, but at the same time, he chose not to do that, which was very interesting from a thematic story standpoint. It was like, even though somebody's trying to take your identity, even though somebody's trying to become you, even though somebody is making you trying to lose who you are, and that's when I'm saying all these different kind of themes, you can still choose, even though these people do all these different heinous things to you, to kind of rise above it and just not go there. It's not worth it, you know. It's not losing yourself ultimately anyway. Because I was, at a certain point, I was like, how in the world are they going to get through this? I mean, for me, the whole family that were attacking him and doing these different things to him, there was never a time that, well, yeah, I take that back. Rose did try to kill him. She tried to put a gun to him. She sucked the two, the grandfather and the grandmother. That whole grandmother thing freaked me out, by the way, and as well as the grandfather thing. And I think that it was not necessarily merited. It was a little too gory and grotesque, but it was like understandable. People were in the crowds. They were literally cheering that he was able to make it out, because I honestly did not think it. Matter of fact, I don't know if any of y'all felt this way, but even after everything was done, I was like, this could still be in his head, because there's this point where the guy said you have to be submissive. And it was funny because when she told him to sink and he was stuck in this kind of state, I was like, he's still conscious, but he's not there. It's like, even when they closed his eyelid, he couldn't see anything. He was blacked out. And there was moments of time that you don't know where he was at. So I was like, let it bleed. Like, I literally waited until after the credits. I was like, is he still under the control of these people? And the fact that he left Rose alive, it's like, it leaves the door open for something to continue on. So, I mean, for me, it was just a lot of different things that I didn't expect. I mean, the thing was for me that the movie was multi-layered, not just in the sense of it being a good horror genre, a good comedy, great performances. I mean, like, everybody across the board. Like I said, Daniel, Kaluuya as Chris was amazing. Like, the scene with him, with, you know, the mother and her hypnotizing him, and it was just like, he was so left in this catatonic state that, like, she made him recount the death of his mother. And it was like, how that happened and the way that he pulled it out. Like, I was like, this is an amazing acting performance. But the thing about it, like I said, it's multi-layered in the sense that as much as everything is kind of going on, like even with the brother, what was his name? Cable Audrey Jones as the brother. And when he kind of brought him there and talked to him about the whole, like, him being with jiu-jitsu, and he started talking to him about, like, his physical structure, and him just kind of, I was like, is he, you know, I was thinking that he was, it could come off as him being, you know, racist, but he was really jealous. It wasn't so much that he was racist against, he was jealous about who and what this man really is as African American male. And I think that that's really interesting and profound, because as I said, I went and broke down for you guys the stolen identity, the brainwashing, the submission that was all needed before the process could happen for the, you know, the switching of the brains, or switching of the consciousness. And I even mentioned it with, like I said, with my notes. I know I've got a lot of notes here. Like, showing the way of the whole, like he barely was able to maintain himself, but he could not stop. It was weird though, because there were different moments that didn't necessarily make sense until later on. And I think if I go back and watch it, it will make more sense. Like when he went into the deer scene, into the woods, I understood now that that was the same exact thing he did when his mom died. And they didn't necessarily identify that, they talked about that in dialogue. As far as companionship, you know, like he chose to allow Rose to live and rise above the fact of, you know, not killing her. But as much as that, his companionship with his friend, like his friend did not stop. Like they brought back Maxine from Living Color, and she was a police officer. He went to her like, look, my friend is this, my friend is here, I don't know what's going on. And he was always a comic relief, but he was also something that I think was very much so needed, that somebody was not gonna give up. A lot of times in horror genres, like you have like eventually this one friend that'll come help and he just kind of dies, or this one friend you think is a friend, he's not. Like this guy that was played his friend was all the time trying to have his back. And it was funny, what was his name? I think it was Rod, or Lil Rel. He definitely was an awesome friend, and that inhabited a lot of things that I think people miss in these kind of like horror films or even comedy films, like that one friend that will not give up on you. And like when he came at the end, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, oh my God, that's the same cop from the beginning. Like, I don't know, he's gonna make us out alive. How is he gonna explain all these dead bodies? And that was Lil Rel. And Lil Rel got there and I was like, yes. I was literally cheering, and I don't know, it was, like I said in my announcement review, I felt like I was going through a whole line of emotions. Like I came into the movie very anxiety ridden. I didn't want to go to this kind of movie that was like all racially this and like they're just taking black people and like torturing them. No, they're using them and they're becoming them. It's not so much like I'm taking a black person or somebody of a different race and I'm like, all right, you're gonna do this for me. Like the freaking grandparents wanted to do those things. They wanted to chop wood. That's what they're used to. The grandmother wanted to go and, you know, pour a drink and help. Like that's what she's used to. But from looking at it, from looking at the trailer, you would think that that's what they were, just really servants. And that's one of the magics about this film, is that Peele was able to brainwash us into believing one thing, and then until you leave out and you realize, wait, that's what was really happening. Like the reason why, you know, the guy that was out there in the woods who ended up becoming, we found out was the grandfather, the reason why he was running, he had said in dialogue, open dialogue, that, you know, he wanted to make sure he was exercising. So he was sitting there running in the middle of the night. Like I was just like, what the heck? One thing I wanted to see was where did they actually sleep. I was really curious about that. But the sound. So the beginning of the movie, like they had this one interesting song. It was kind of a laid back song that, you know what I'm saying, I would vibe to personally. And then as the movie strayed along, like the sounds just got more ominous and ominous. So by the end of the film, there was like this random song and score, and I was just like, this is just so uncomfortable. And that's what the movie would bring out of you. There were friends of mine that were like, kill this white person, kill that white person. There was other people that I knew that were right next to me like, no, defending this is like, you don't understand, this is what this really means. And then by the end of the film, like everybody really had to shut up because they didn't understand what was really happening. By the time, you know, the third act happened and he was going through all these different kind of things, I think I missed it. You know, it wasn't until I left the film and I got back home and I realized, wait, they weren't, you know, being, you know, this kind of like, all right, I'm going to have this person as my humble servant. No, I want to become this person. And I think that is something I don't think they've ever really done. A lot of times with films, you know, you'll have like 12 years to say, like, you just want to just condemn this one person, condemn this people. And it's a whole other thing, you want to embody who they are. And it's like to the utmost, it's right there in your face. And like, is this realities for some people? And it is, like, identifiable. There are people out there that, you know, are not happy with who they are, you know, and that could be for African Americans too. So it's just really interesting where you go into your identity that comes in with the writing and with the plotting for this film, that I think that Peele comes out really well. And I think that's the reason why it resonates with critics, is because it's not just your conventional horror and comedy, which he gets that craft perfect. He gets the music perfect. He gets the acting perfect. It's the underlying theme of stuff that you don't see until after the twist has already happened to you. It's like you're literally being hypnotized and put to this standpoint of like, wow, this is not what I thought. And I think that was very smart of a film, and I really enjoyed it. And I know that I talked a lot, and I didn't want to go, to a perspective of one way or another with this, because I think that you can take into account from looking at it from either way, from either side, even if you're Caucasian, African American, or Native American, or whatever race you are. But I think that you can definitely say you have to appreciate the work that was put in through all these different tales that were in this interwoven story. And like, if you go and look at this one time, you're gonna miss something. There's no way. Like, I really had to sit there and think and ponder this for 2 days to really allow this to go. And I'm actually gonna have a live discussion about this with the Three Black Geeks. I'm actually inviting Andre, the Black Nerd, and a couple other people to see if they want to do a live discussion on this. So let me know in the comment section below if y'all would be interested in that. But yeah, the movie just had different levels to it. It was awesome. It was a lot of different symmetry there. There was a lot of different specific themes that were there that you don't know about until after the fact. But it was just, I think it was just masterful. The more I think about it, the more I want to go see it again. And I'm gonna try to see it again maybe Friday if I can. And fiance does not want to see it at all. She was kind of like me. I did not want to see it. I didn't want to see African American people get tortured. I did not know, there was a whole different level to it. But that's not condoning the fact that anybody has the right, to take somebody else's identity. And that's a strong statement in of itself. It's like, Key, what you trying to say, dog? Like, is anybody trying to take somebody else's identity? Is anybody else trying to be somebody else? Is anybody trying to, allow somebody to be so subservient and needing that they become something totally entirely, which is interesting. But anyway, I digress. I enjoyed the film. None of this is based on my own personal perspective. It's just what I identified from looking at the film from an outside standpoint, from a critic standpoint, and from being an African American man, what I'm proud of. But at the same time, I love my Caucasian brothers and sisters, and I love all of you guys. So I just wanted to make sure I keep the record straight, and that this movie is not what you think. Make sure you take time to go and watch it again, and you will get so many other layers behind it. And I don't know, man. I'm done. I don't have anything more. I will continue this on in our spoiler discussion. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Peace, everybody.
Get out!